Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good golly, Miss Molly. Welcome to this little video with my thoughts on John Wick Chapter 4, which I had the pleasure of seeing at the cinema yesterday. I think it's important to support the things that we love and the people that the creators that are making stuff we love. So I definitely wanted to make a point of going to see John Wick Chapter 4 in the cinema. Only the second time this year I've made the trek to the big city to do so for a movie, the other one being Bathan. Um, and it was exceptionally worth that trip. So, before we get into the movie itself, the cinema that I did see it in was, standard Cineplex. No, didn't go to an IMAX screening. I actually do not believe that would be necessarily that important to this movie, but it's just not something I'm into anyway. But it certainly was Dolby Atmos sound and reclining seats and all that good stuff. Funnily enough, there was only another 5 other people in the cinema. I don't think that's indicative of anything. It was a 12:30 p.m. showing in a city Cineplex in the outskirts of the city, so I don't think that particularly means anything. I'm pretty sure Friday night would have been exceptionally busy, and I certainly hope so. The 5 people who were in the cinema with me did seem to enjoy it, though, which is good. And so did I. So chapter 4 of John Wick, it gets very important to support high quality, high budget, Anglophile action movies, as there's not particularly a great deal of those around at the moment. John Wick has been the standard bearer for action movies for the last 10 years. And I'm a great admirer of Keanu Reeves and Chad Stahelski and the entire team for making these movies and creating a universe and a visual style all of their own, I think. And certainly, being a huge lifelong fan of action movies, that most derided of genres by mainstream critics. I think it's important there are people out there that are still trying to make good action movies. Um, John Wick as a franchise, I think, has innovated many things and become the new standard. Some of the comments around this particular movie that doesn't particularly innovate anything new there, but I'm not too concerned about that myself. The quality of the action sequences is such that they're thoroughly enjoyable in their own right. Certainly, every piece of weaponry that could be used, I believe, is used in this one, which is fascinating. And I don't think that things necessarily need to be bringing in new things like bullet time, let's say, was a new invention. Um, doesn't have to happen for that movie to be enjoyable. So John Wick Chapter 4 does carry on very soon after the events of Chapter 3. John is still excommunicado, as it were, and but he's vowing revenge. At the end of the third movie, we see him potentially. Well, he's in a pretty bad position, having been shot by his friend Winston, who had no real choice. And that's a theme that continues throughout John Wick 4, and that certain characters do certain things whether they really would like to or not, because they've got other competing pressures, let's say family pressures. So, and I don't want to give this will be as spoiler-free a discussion as I can make it. There may be one or two mild spoilers, and certainly don't intend to give away any major plot points. And I apologize if I inadvertently give anything away, because I do want you to go see this at the cinema. So John is vowing revenge on the High Table, and the High Table is not going to sit back and let John continue to defy their authority. Everyone is under the High Table, and he is definitely seen as the a rogue element. We see the return of existing characters that we know and love. So Ian McShane as Winston Scott, the Continental Hotel New York manager. Lance Reddick as Chiron, Sharon, as some people say. I'm trying to pronounce it in the original Greek, as if I'm a scholar. I want to pause and just talk about Lance Reddick a little bit at this point. Um, Given his untimely and very sad demise, Lance Reddick was one of these actors for me that classed the place up. You put him wherever you put him in, it immediately raised the class levels of that content enormously. Very dignified, fantastic speaking voice, which gave him many memorable video game roles, such as in Quantum Break and the Horizon series, where he played Silence, and he absolutely breathed life into that character and in a tremendous way. He's in the Destiny franchise. That voice work is just superb. But yeah, he raised the bar on anything he was in, going right back to The Wire, Fringe, the Bosch series, where he was absolutely fantastic, and little things that he did in other shows where he just kind of you could always rely on him to make things better than they may well have been. So R.I.P. Lance Reddick, but he does return in this movie as Chiron, and you see him here with Ian McShane. New characters are introduced as well, and I should not forget, of course, the wonderful return of the very excellent Lawrence Fishburne as the Bowery King, who I wouldn't say his role is expanded in this from the other movies, but he certainly has the reach of his character has expanded, if I could put it that way. So it's great to see those familiar characters back, all with motivations and reasons to be revolving around John's axis. There are new characters introduced, which is great. There is the legend that is Donnie Yen, playing Kane, which I do love the pun that it's Caine, but of course he's blind, so he's walking around with a cane the entire time. Obvious pun, I know, but I still enjoy it. It's wonderful to see him here, and he's a friend of John's, old colleague, both fulfilling a similar role in their lives in this assassin underworld under the high table. But being John's friend doesn't mean that he always doesn't come into conflict with John. Again, I don't want to give anything away. Also introduced are the marvelous Clancy Brown, who expands his role in this as I think you would describe it as he's described as the Harbinger, is a high-ranking, high-table operative, a man not to be trifled with or crossed. And he brings an exceptionally commanding feeling to his character. Also on the right is Bill Skarsgård, one of the Skarsgård clan, who it plays the Marquis de Gramont, who is a powerful high table member, although his position on the high table is dependent upon, in many ways, his ability to neutralize the threat to the high table of John Wick. So don't think it's giving too much away to say that his character is the prime antagonist in the movie. Some of my favorite parts of this film, though, were the introduction of the Osaka Continental Hotel. Here we see the manager, Koji is the manager of the Osaka Continental Hotel, played by another legendary actor, and I'm a big fan of Asian cinema, Japanese, Korean, Chinese, so I watch a lot of those movies. The Hiroki Sanada, who's appeared in many Western films as well, of course. He's the manager of the Osaka. Brilliant portrayal in this fascinating character. And Rina Sawayana, and forgive me if I butcher that name, as Akira, his daughter. So I do want to talk about the Osaka stuff in a little more detail coming up, but another key character introduced, and there are many others, but these are the key ones, is a mysterious tracker who terms himself Mr. Nobody. And Mr. Nobody is played by, I think I don't know if I've seen this gentleman before, but Shamir Anderson. Shamir Anderson, and he's a pretty cool guy, and he brings the required dog puppy action into the movie. And I couldn't help but wondering if his terming of himself as Mr. Nobody may be a nod to the film Nobody, given that there are a lot of connections in cast and crew, or in crew, sorry, between the John Wick universe and the Nobody movie. So anyway, he's on the trail of John Wick, and again has multiple competing motivations throughout the movie. So the visual style of the movie continues to be something that feels uniquely John Wick. Exterior shots, when you do get them, are muted, cold, very grey. The interior sets and shots are always this brightly lit, either by candlelight or by neon, or just the internal, the sets are just so beautifully filmed. It's kind of like a enhanced muted is it's a weird way of putting it, schizophrenic way, but the movie, the cinematography, art direction, and all of the set design is just so fantastic. And these set pieces in many of these places specifically set up to aid in the visual display of the combat and the action. So beautiful. The film looks beautiful. There's absolutely no doubt about it. So and part of that visual style that I loved, and indeed many of the sequences I loved the most, were set in the Osaka Continental in Japan. With first of all, the kitchen in this place must be the best stocked kitchen in the world, and I'm not necessarily talking about food. But these scenes look beautiful. I love the Japanese aesthetic, and I do love the way that the Osaka Continental was filmed. It looked gorgeous. The sort of museum style rooms with the weaponry and the old armor just looked absolutely gorgeous. And the action scenes in here were some of the best in the movie. Certainly used multiple styles of weaponry and fighting. Donnie Yen introduces some very neat ways, because his character is blind, and whilst he has heightened senses, he uses a couple of aids as well to help him identify where his foes are. So again, without giving too much away, watch out for that. It's quite amusing. So wonderful setting in the Osaka setting. And the fighting and the action is as beautifully choreographed and brutal as you would expect. Now, I actually think John Wick is almost like a movie about physics, because John himself is like a black hole, I think. If you get too close to that black hole and fall into his event horizon, your destiny is to be destroyed. Because that's exactly what usually happens if you get close enough to him. Also, the gravity tends, black holes can bend light around them, tends to bend an awful lot of bullets around him too. Although he does catch a few in his Kevlar jacket later in the movie. So yeah, it's really a movie about physics, and there is one of the minor quibbles I would have with the movie is that he does seem to be becoming a little superhero invulnerable, not in not in the sense of bullets or knives, but the number of times he can be hit by a vehicle or fall down a massive flight of stairs without breaking anything, and can get up at the end and dust himself off and continue to fight. enjoyable, but possibly a little, and the scene you'll see this in a couple of scenes, such as around the Arc de Triomphe, where vehicular mayhem occurs, if I could put it that way, without giving anything away. So, minor quibble though, because these scenes, like we've come to expect from John Wick, are beautifully choreographed. The effort that has gone in by the actors to make these is phenomenal, as we know. So they look great. The scenes look great. The Osaka stuff, particularly, absolutely thoroughly enjoyed. I think that was one minor quibble I may have, which is around the defying of limb breaking. In terms of some of the times Johnny take a hit. Possibly the movie could be seen, and many have commented on this as being slightly too long. I think it weighs in at around about 2 hours, 40 minutes. Now, I didn't feel like it felt that long whilst I was in the movie. I mean, there was no time that I particularly felt my attention wandering, other than, strangely enough, perhaps in the third act, when I felt when they transitioned to a real-time set of action scenes, and I felt that a few minutes could have been trimmed off here and there that might just have made it a little bit snappier. I think 2 hours, 40 minutes is possibly a little long. I'm not going to say I didn't enjoy the movie thoroughly as a result of that, but I could see some validity in those concerns. However, as I say, it didn't feel like 2 hours, 40 minutes necessarily while I was in it, although I wish I'd taken a bottle in with me, an empty one. The audio, by the way, the audio is magnificent in this movie. The sound effects, the audio design. I mean, if you see it in the kind of cinema that's got a Dolby Atmos or setup, some really, really wonderful stuff. The music played towards the end is absolutely fantastic as well. So again, fantastic craft, technical skills in these movies. And you compare that to some of the shoddy work that's going out in, let's say, superhero movies now in terms of sound and CGI, etc. The care and attention and craft in this movie is fantastic. So the actors have to be in the top of their game to justify that, and they are. Keanu is, as usual, impassively magnificent. Ian McShane is just this urbane, wonderful, wonderful character they've created in Winston. Lawrence Fishburne, Lance Reddick, all brilliant characters. I love the world they've created. I love the characters they've created. The lore is expanded again with finding out more about the High Table, more about their practices that can be used by them, but also against them, as long as you've got the balls to do it. And it does seem like that there are a number of other rules, other than the physics ones I mentioned, that continue to be present in John Wick, which is, first of all, there is no apparent law enforcement, because you can shoot up a city and nobody will appear. No sirens in the distance. By the way, this again, a travelogue. John Wick movies, brilliant. Paris, Berlin, Osaka, New York, some fantastic views of these cities. Again, very muted, generally speaking, outside in terms of colors and tones, but still a great travelogue. So that's, there's no law enforcement available. It seems like also that virtually everybody in this world either works for or is under the High Table as an assassin, or as a tracker, or is working at the Continental, or is working for the Bowery King, or nobody. There doesn't seem to be many civilians in this world, or certainly they're just like ghosts. So these are two, which leads you to believe this isn't our universe. This is definitely some alternative universe in some way. So hey, it's a movie universe, so it can be what it wants to be. But I do actually like that. It almost brings a fantasy element into it, which I like. Yeah, so fantastic action. Action scenes will not let you down. There's some great weaponry used. John's got a very custom 9mm here pistol. I don't want to go too much into the details, but also the Dragon's Breath rounds that are used in some of the fight scenes. These are incendiary shotgun rounds, are just used spectacularly. There is one fight sequence which is filmed in an isometric way, so there's some video game parallels, I feel, always in John Wick movies, and that isometric view of John fighting his way through a building, and you see it from above, which has been used before, but it's used exceptionally effectively here, particularly some of the Dragon's Breath rounds that he is used. First is tried to be used against him, but he turns it around. Those are particularly enjoyable sequences. If you don't like the action in John Wick movies, then you will not like action movies, full stop. And I love these. So I could go on at more great length, but I think it would be nice to sum up. Actually, by the way, there's a whole wet fight sequence, and reminiscent slightly of a little tinge of the Matrix back there, but it's quite an amusing sequence too. Just some really, really brilliantly filmed set pieces, which are fascinating and visceral, and are always a joy to watch. So to sum up, thank you for listening to this point. I really appreciate it. This was one of a video I did that I didn't particularly script this. I did prepare a few images. I just really wanted to talk from the heart. I absolutely enjoyed this movie. I think it's the equal of certainly the third movie. No Halle Berry, hopefully not giving anything away. Halle Berry is not part of this. Hopefully she'll be part of the universe again. But it's always a joy to watch Keanu as John Wick and watch these characters. I love the devotion they put into the action. The action did not disappoint me. As I mentioned, a couple of minor quibbles, a slightly superhero-ish feel to John in places, not because of the skills he displays, but just the physical hits that he takes. Possibly could have trimmed a few minutes here or there. Other than that, I think it's a brilliant movie, brilliant action movie. Brings us these characters that we adore and love, and I commend these guys for making it. I had a great time. By the way, I don't think I'm giving anything away if I say if you do go see the movie, wait till the credits are finished. There is a post-credit scene. I don't want to give anything else away about the plot. There's too many important plot points to reveal. Don't want to do that. But do stay for the post-credit scene. It does give you a little snippet of something. So yeah, go see it. I think you'll enjoy it. Make sure you're prepared to miss a couple of minutes if you got to nip out for a break. It is rather long, but yeah, bags of fun. So thanks very much for watching this video. If you liked it, leave a like, leave a comment. Please subscribe. Check out some of my other content and some of the great live streams that are coming up. Until next time, keep on rocking.